Yes?
What does three mouths represents in Reishi's Chinese ideogram?
What it really means is really being able to build up your qi. Three mouths means it can really feed you deeply. So nobody's asked the question that's being asked in every other class, so I'm going to ask it. I know some of you are probably bored hearing this whole thing because you've already heard it once or twice already. But what are we going to do about the radiation cloud that's coming towards us? And I think it is an important thing to note because it is a huge question. Just to put it in perspective, I had phone calls from a lady sitting in a parking lot in a drugstore in Vancouver. They didn't have any potassium iodine, and I know anywhere else in Vancouver she could get it because she was going to wait in that parking lot until they had it. I think some people have got a little overly zealous with this whole thing. So, first of all, whenever an event like this happens, and I'm under the impression there's many more events like this are going to happen, that's my impression, we're always going to see spin. And right now I think we're getting two ends of the spin. We're getting one that, oh, don't worry about it, it's no problem at all. Probably the most scary thing I've heard in the last 24 hours, Obama says, I've been informed that. That is the precursor for the word, whatever comes after this is spin. He's not saying it's he did it. He's being informed by his advisors. As soon as you hear that, you know the next few statements are going to be spin. But that's beside the point. He says, I've been informed that there's no problem for Americans, Hawaii, or the West Coast to worry about any problems with it. So that's the most scary thing I've heard so far. I've actually spent the weekend with a bunch of Japanese in Los Angeles whose families are right near it. It does appear that it's a little bit worse than what we're being told in North America. The Koreans are saying it's really bad, it might not be that bad. So I'm suggesting when you hear these things, you're going to have spin that it's, oh my God, the sky's falling in, run for your lives, Chicken Little is coming to town. Or you're going to have other people spin that don't worry, be happy, it's going to be all right. But be happy is a really good thing. But what do we know? We do know some things were released into the atmosphere on Friday. We do know it's radioactive, and the first thing that's going to happen in any kind of radioactive things is you produce radioactive iodine. Radioactive iodine has a half-life of about 8 days. What that means is if you have 1,000 units, 8 days later you only have 500 units, 8 days later you only have 250 units. We don't know how much was released. We don't even know if it's a toxic amount. What the general thing that's being utilized right now, funny as it may seem, is the banana scale. Most people don't know that there's radioactive background in almost everything we consume. One of the most radioactive foods of all is actually bananas. And you can actually pass a Geiger counter over a banana and get radioactivity. The reports that I've been hearing, the radiation in Tokyo is between 1 and 3 bananas, i.e. the level that you would get if you ate 1 to 3 bananas. Probably not an issue. Depends on how high it goes up in the atmosphere and depends on how it's coming this way. Indications it takes somewhere between 6 and 12 days to get here, so the iodine will have dissipated to a degree. But only to a degree. It really depends on quantity. One of the reasons when you're exposed to radiation you want to take potassium iodine is you want to bind iodine up in your thyroid large enough so the other iodine won't get there. So I've been doing a little bit of research on this in between patients over the last few days because, I mean, it's the most perennial question I'm getting by phone, by email, by whatever. So I've literally gone to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and tried to look at their definitions pre-spin. I want to get information that's not current. I want to get it before this. And literally they're suggesting the average dose for the average person is literally 65 milligrams of potassium iodine that you'd want to take. They have dosages for various age groups. Possibly, if you're really in a major radioactive cloud, you want to be taking 130. Most of the tablets you get are about 65 milligrams of potassium iodine. A lactating mother might want to take 130, and there's lower doses for children, etc. You can take it, they say you can take it up to 2 hours after, 3 hours after. But a lot of authorities say it's best to take it a week before and build it up in the system. So I'm suggesting that if anyone is paranoid, take some potassium iodide. Oh, you can't find it anywhere, I hear. Everywhere it is gone. To put it in perspective, our factory in Penticton had 1,000 bottles of potassium iodine on Monday morning. By Monday noon, they were wiped out, usually a 6-month supply because you don't sell that much of the stuff. And they went into high production on Friday or on Monday afternoon, and still to this point they've produced as much as they can get the orders for, to put the labels on, etc., etc. So there's a feeding frenzy out there in potassium iodide that might be a little bit fanatic. But I'm suggesting this is kind of like a canary in the coal mine, as it were, or training wheels for us to understand what's going on. First of all, it might be a good enough reason that we shouldn't support the most clean of all energy supplies, nuclear energy. Yeah, it's clean unless there's a little accident. And there's hardly a country in the world that may be German that I would trust their backup systems. Japan is about as trustworthy as you can get, and it failed their first 3 backup systems, and they were against the wall so much, well, of course the wall exploded, so they weren't really against it anymore, but that they actually started putting seawater on it, which is never being tested. They didn't know if it was going to implode or all the ions that would cause all kinds of problems. So you'd have to see that they were a little bit on the scared side, to say the least. So we do have evidence that it might be a little bit worse than we originally thought. But that as it is, we don't know what's going to be happening. But literally starting tomorrow to the next week or 2, we might be having radiation come down our way. If it's so high, it's no big deal. But it might come down in precipitation, which we got projected for the next few days. And if we have a chinook, it can get plowed down on us here. So all of these things are interesting to note. The spin will come off after a while. So it doesn't hurt a person to take potassium iodide.